The tree that shouldn't be, it all started with a tree, Chris said, his voice quiet as though telling the story too loud might wake something up. It wasn't just any tree. No, this one was different. People in the village said it was cursed. He paused, his eyes darting toward the window, as though he was expecting something to appear in the darkness. My name's Chris, and I've lived in this village all my life. We were told stories about the old oak at the edge of the woods. But you know how adults are, right? They always say those things to scare kids like us. Don't go into the woods at night, they'd warn. Don't go near the old oak. He looked back at his listeners, who were now leaning forward in anticipation. I didn't believe them, not at first, but then I saw it for myself. Chris took a deep breath before continuing. It happened on a cold October night. I was walking home from my friend Jesse's house. The moon was big and bright, lighting up the path ahead of me. I wasn't scared, not until I heard the wind. His voice dropped to a whisper. It wasn't a normal wind, this. It didn't rustle the leaves or sway the branches like it should. No, it was like the wind was trying to say something. It sounded like whispers. Whispers coming from the direction of the old oak. He paused for effect, watching his listeners' wide eyes. I tried to ignore it at first. I told myself it was just my imagination. But the whispers got louder the closer I got to the tree, and then I saw it. Chris shuddered at the memory. The tree was huge, bigger than any tree I'd ever seen before. Its branches were twisted and gnarled, and its bark, well, it didn't look like normal bark. It looked like it was covered in faces. Not real faces, but shapes that almost looked like eyes, noses, and mouths. I thought it was just a trick of the moonlight, but something about those faces felt too real. He looked at his listeners, gauging their reactions. I should have run right then and this, but I didn't. I just stood there staring at the tree, and that's when I heard it. His voice lowered, barely more than a breath. It wasn't the wind this time, it was the tree. The tree, it spoke to me. One of the kids listening gasped. Yeah, Chris said, nodding. I know it sounds crazy, but I swear, the tree said my name. It whispered, Chris, come closer. And for some reason, I wanted to. I don't know why, but my feet started moving toward it. I couldn't stop myself. His hands clenched the edges of his chair as he remembered the pull of the tree. The closer I got, the more the faces seemed to move. I could see them now. Their eyes were wide and their mouths were open, like they were screaming, but I didn't hear any screams. Just more whispers. Come closer, it kept saying. Join us. Chris's voice cracked, and he looked down at his hands. I was almost at the base of the tree when something grabbed me from behind. I screamed, but then I heard Jesse's voice shouting my name. He'd come out looking for me because I'd left my jacket at his house. Chris took a shaky breath. If it weren't for Jesse, I don't know what would have happened. He pulled me back away from the tree, and as soon as he did, the whisper stopped. Just like that. The wind was gone, and the tree, well, it was just a tree again. Big, twisted, and creepy, but silent. His listeners sat in stunned silence as Chris finished his story. I didn't say anything to Jesse about what I'd heard or seen. I figured he wouldn't believe me anyway, but I knew that the tree was something more than just wood and leaves. It was alive, and it wanted me. He leaned in closer to his audience, his voice barely a whisper now. Since that night, I've never gone near the old oak again. And if you're smart, you won't either, because it's still out there, waiting, whispering, and one day it might call your name too. The end.